Hello everybody, welcome back to Allan Walls Photography. This is Allan, and today we're doing a DIY project, kind of. So here's the deal. Most of the time when I do a DIY project, or I think when anybody does a DIY project, they've already done it before, maybe a few times to kind of figure out what's going on and practice. Well, I never have been much of one for practice, so what we're doing today is different. I'm actually going to do this DIY project in real time and just see what happens. It sounds like a recipe for disaster, I know, but this is something I've been thinking about doing for a long time, and I think it's something you might be interested in. So let me tell you what it is we're going to do, and then we'll see how it goes. I have always been fascinated in using fiber optics in macro photography. It just seems like such a cool way to get light exactly where you want it without a lot of clutter and without a lot of guesswork. I mean, where you can position your lights exactly where you want them and have them stay. But as you know, I'm not a big fan of continuous light in macro. I prefer flash for all of the reasons I've talked about before. And until fairly recently, there wasn't a commercial product that you could buy that would deliver flash through fiber optics right where you wanted it. There apparently is now. There's a company that makes fiber optic lights for photography. Adaptalux is the name. I believe they are releasing or have released a flash version of their LED bendy arm light sources. But I want to make one of my own because it's almost free is the main reason, but also because I came across a real gem to use for this project. And this is what it is. It is made by a European company named Volpi, V-O-L-P-I. I think they're European. But they make some of the best fiber optic stuff going. They make a lot of fiber optics for microscopes, and also I think they do for some medical endoscopes. ENT stuff mainly, I believe. Don't hold me to it. But they are one of the few sources that I really trust who make just the fiber optic part of the equipment. So you don't have to go buy a $2,000 light source to go with this. They just sell the bendy arms. And this one showed up on eBay a while ago. And it is truly dirt cheap. I mean, it's under $40 for two arms, nice, stiff, positionable arms with nice, pointy fiber optic cables inside them. And normally, a lot of the Volpi fiber optics actually have a glass lens right where the two pieces of gear come together. And the light from the light source that you would buy separately strikes a disc here, and the light is carried to the two different arms. Now, I thought that's what I was buying because the photographs were not very good, and I thought this was that lens. It turns out that it's not. The input for this thing is here, and it's very small. It's only a 15 millimeter jack, and about 6-7 millimeters in the middle contain the fiber optics. So I didn't know what I was going to do with this. This one is definitely made for plugging into a high intensity light source. So we have a couple of issues that are going to make this much harder to work with than the kind with the big open glass inlet. Now, another issue that I found with this that is going to be is disappointing, not really problematic. We'll just work around it. But most of the Volpi fiber optic arms that I have seen the glass element here is actually split into two, meaning that each arm is fed from a different side of the thing. And that was my initial plan when I bought this, was that I was going to use two different light sources so that I would have independent control over the arms. But when I got this and started examining it carefully, I realized that the fibers from the left and the right arm are actually mixed together in this cable. You can tell that by taking a red object and placing it in front of one. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but I'm going to take this red cap and place it in front of one of the arms, and you'll see scattered red fibers in there. Now, if I take another red cap, it fills the thing in. So you see that the fibers are mixed, they're not split down the middle. So here's my plan. Everything else I'm using is pretty much just junk. I'm going to be using a very inexpensive manual flash. I don't know where this came from. It's a battery operated, made by Altura. I think it's maybe a $30 flash. It's not very powerful, but it's not a bad flash. I use it for lighting my backgrounds if I'm using speedlight. So, I mean, it's perfectly good. It is actually zoomable, so you can focus the light, which is good. That's the first thing. The second thing, of course, is the fiber optics, and that'll be the last thing we deal with. Then I needed a way to contain what we're building. And I found a box for 99 cents at my favorite shop. It's just a cheap wooden box, but it's perfect for what we're doing. Now, the first thing I realized is that if I just have this flash partially into the box, which is what I'm planning on doing, and fire the flash triggered by my camera, and if I was to have my other end of my fiber optic cable somehow inside the box too, only a tiny amount of the flash would make it to the intake of the fiber optics, and that's no good. So the first thing I thought of, was if I could find a lens that somehow I could capture the light from the flash and focus that down onto this disc of fiber optic material at the end, then I could end up with a very bright flash if I could channel that light in. So what I decided to do was I took apart a lens years ago. It was a very inexpensive, broken, no-name Chinese lens. But in the heart of the thing was this element, which is actually biconvex. So it's basically just a magnifying glass. But what I discovered in my experiments was if I can position this lens very precisely in front of the flash, it will focus the flash down to a very small disc about the same size as this. So the idea is this. I'm going to take a little piece of wood that I cut so that it would fit right inside this box, like so. I'm going to drill a hole in it and glue the lens into this board so that I can position it exactly where I want it. I'm going to cut a hole in this end of the box so that the flash will go through, but all the business end will stay on the outside. Now, what I'm going to have to do is somehow gather the light from the end of the flash and deliver as much of it as possible straight to the lens without a lot of light bouncing around and getting absorbed inside the box. So I'm going to build some kind of a reflector, like a reflector tube, that will be large enough to slide tightly onto the end of the flash, and also small enough to slide tightly onto the end of the lens, and filled with a highly reflective material. So that as the flash comes out, the photons are all bouncing around, but they're all headed towards the lens. That lens is going to be positioned exactly onto the end of the fiber optic, which I will be drilling a hole through the end of the box to position this right where we want it. So that's my theory. Whether or not it'll work, I have no idea. And whether or not the optics of this make any sense, I also have no idea. I started trying to figure it all out mathematically and just got so confused. It was starting to take the fun out of it. So I'm just going to go with my gut on this one, which means I'm going to have to cut some holes to mount all of this stuff. That'll be the first thing I do. I'll build some kind of a light reflector tunnel to get the light from the flash to the lens. That's probably all we got to do right there. And then I'll set it up and give it a try and see if it works. I love the fact that I'm going to be able to have my lights this far away, so I can have this contraption way out of the way of my light cage. And all I will have is this has got holes in it, so I can bolt this to the floor of the light cage and just position my lights exactly where I want them. But that's only going to work if light comes through these. It comes through when I use a flashlight. When I shine a flashlight at one end, light comes out the other ends. I'll show you that. In fact, I'll show you the little experiment that I did to figure out where to position everything. So let me show you that real quick. I'm so excited about this project, I completely forgot to thank the wonderful Patreon supporters who make all this possible. Thank you, guys. And thanks to those of you who've made contributions, donations through my donation page on the website. I'll put the address in the show notes as usual. So the experiment that I did to see if this would even be feasible was as follows. I took a little flashlight that has 9 bulbs in it. There's a reason for that. I'll explain in a moment. And I took my lens. Now, I messed around with a bunch of lenses. I've got a box full of different kinds of lenses, big ones, small ones, all different shapes, all different focal lengths. This looks like it's a 2-element lens, but rather than try to figure out the geometry of the lens, I just wanted to know if there was a way that it could focus light at a short distance. So I positioned the lens like that, and then I put a surface behind it, and then I turned on my flashlight, which I had resting on something. So there, that's about right. So the first thing I did was position the lens in line with the flashlight. And then I just kind of moved the flashlight backwards and forwards. Now, I could see, for example, right here, that it was focusing nicely, but that's far too big a point of light or a blob of light. I needed something much smaller so that it would fit on the end of the fiber optics. So what I tried was moving the lens closer to the fiber optic, it'll be right there, and moving the flashlight back. And I experimented with all different measurements and finally struck on this, which gives me the smallest possible in-focus blob of these LED light bulbs. Now, all of these actually fit nicely onto the fiber optic rod. So I know that if I can keep this orientation and have the flash, of course, where the flashlight is, keep the lens and the relationship between the lens and the end of the fiber optic the same, then I should be able to channel all of that flash, or much of that flash, to a point on the end of the fiber optics. So that's how I experimented with it. And of course, then I took a ruler, I measured these distances and used the lens formula to calculate the focal distance of this lens, just in case you wanted to try this yourself. It's the reciprocal of this distance, so 1 over this distance plus 1 over this distance is the same as 1 over the focal distance of the lens, and it comes out to, like I say, around 40 millimeters, thereabouts. In the show notes, I'll give you the exact numbers, because you can actually buy cheap glass lenses online for $4 or $5. They don't have a housing on them or anything, but you don't need it because we're going to build a housing for it anyway. So now let's start the project. I have to cut a flash-shaped hole in this end of the box. What just fell in there? I don't know. Then I have to build some kind of a channel for the flash. I'm going to use some of this thin foam that I like. I'm probably going to have to score it so that it'll bend right. And I'm going to have to design it right because it's going from a fairly large flash to a fairly small lens. So I'm going to have to create a funnel shape out of this stuff to do that. Then I will, I've got a piece of wood somewhere with a circle drawn on it. I need to drill a hole in that to hold the lens. And then I need to drill a hole to hold the fiber optics. And yeah, so let's get started and see what happens. I'm super excited about this. I don't know if you know this, but no hardware comes in the size 15 millimeters, the size of the end of my fiber optics. I just went to the hardware shop to see if I could find a drill bit, and they just don't make them. They make them in 14 and 16, same with bolts and screws and everything else. But I did find a Forstner bit that's I've just spent half an hour sharpening, so hopefully it'll cut wood. This is 15.9 millimeters, so what I'll do is just end up wrapping some Gorilla Tape around the end of this. So job one is let's make a hole in this box. How about that? That actually worked. That was a good idea to sharpen this. You chat amongst yourselves. I'm going to go get a vacuum cleaner. I forgot that this kind of thing made sawdust. I'll be right back. All right, well, hole number one completed. It's not a very tight fit, but I knew it wouldn't be. I did get I got this grommet. I think that's what you'd call it, and it seems to hold it fairly well. But I don't want to drill a bigger hole right now. I also bought a washer that looked the right size. Now it's too big as well. I don't know. I'll probably just wrap tape around the end of this so it'll jam fit in there. Okay, so part one complete. The next thing is going to be to cut the shape of the flash out. All right. Well, that bit went well. Now, did these things turn? I'm beginning to understand why people practice before they do this kind of thing. It's so that they don't look like complete idiots during the project. Ouch, that just cut my finger. And my saw fell apart. I have a feeling there's a better way for doing this. I'll tell you what, I'll get the blade put back on and then you can come back. tricky. I'm never doing this again. That is much too difficult. All right, let me go get a file and I'll start working on that. You know they call these things bastards. That's what they call files. I've been using the word wrong all my life. Oh, that didn't sound good. I think I just broke the wood a little, a little bit. Might have to glue that back together. Perfect. Part 2 complete. I think I'm going to go outside to drill this hole because that's going to make a lot of mess. I bought a hole saw that's about the right size. So let me give that a shot, and if I don't hurt myself, I'll be right back. Well, I learned something interesting out there with the drill. The people who make my drill buy their batteries from the same place that GoPro gets theirs. It ran out of juice going through that, but I managed to get the hole in the piece of wood. It's not in the middle though. It would be nice to have a drill press. Forgive the noise for just a second. I'm gonna have to get rid of sawdust. All right, so what I'm going to do, I've decided to use some hot glue. Oh, I don't have any in there. I'm going to use the hot glue gun to temporarily put everything where I think it needs to go, and then test it before I actually permanently glue the stuff in. I hope that's an okay idea. All right, so the first thing I want to do is position the lens and see if the lens is still focusing the way it was earlier. I don't even have to glue this in, it can just sit there, but I am going to have to glue this in. It's the perfect size for the hole. I imagine it's probably important that it points forward. I have an inkling that there's probably a better way to do this. You can probably see that better than I can, if it's flat or not. I think that's going to be close enough to at least try it. So I'm going to put this in, put the flash in, and then I'm going to have to make that light tunneling device. I think next time I'm going to practice. I think I'll put a blob on this side as well. Definitely don't want glue on the lens. I was going to run and see how much the Adaptalux version, or I guess theirs is the original, mine's the version, but I was going to run and see how much those things cost. But I think they're hundreds and hundreds of dollars, not $44 anyway. Okay, so I'll let that settle in, then we'll do a quick flashlight test, and if the distances are right, I'll glue this board in. While I'm waiting for that to set up, I think I'll wrap some tape around the end of this so that it fits in there more firmly, and I'll make the light tunnel. So let's do the light tunnel now. I'm just going to go fast forward through it because I think it's going to be very fidgety work.
Now give me the beat.
All right, so this is getting very exciting. The cone looks good. It's nice and shiny on the inside. Seems to be holding its shape. It's correctly round at one end, correctly flash shaped at the other. And testing with the flashlight, when I have the flashlight right there, the lens is focusing it right onto the end of the fiber optic. It's not as small as I wanted it, but if I move the lens closer to make the spot smaller, I have to move the flash all the way outside of the box. I should have got a longer box, but I think, there you go. I with the lens positioned like so, and the flashlight where the flash will be, hopefully you can see all the bulbs of the LEDs shining right onto the end of the fiber optic, which means it's probably as good as we're going to get it. I'm going to go ahead and glue the board in place. Get the flash in and put the tube around it, and we'll be ready to take a test shot. Let me just double check one more time Okay. You know, that's pretty much exactly where I marked the thing initially. I should have just gone with it. All right, so I'm going to hold this in place with some hot glue. Not much, because I'm going to want to take this out again. If, like I say, if this works, I'm going to do a proper job. I'll get a, oh, I'm out of glue stick. Yeah, if this works, what I'm going to do is get a better box and the necessary hardware, maybe something metal. And next thing you know, I'll buy adapter lux with the proceeds from the sale of my junk flash focuser. Okay, I'll do that. Then I'll put the cylinder on the lens and then push the flash onto the cylinder. I made it too long. This reminds me of when I used to work on the Apollo project, building the rockets. Can you imagine them letting me anywhere near a rocket? I want it to be snug. Well, it fits on the lens absolutely perfectly. This is harder than I thought. It doesn't want to go onto my flash the way it did in my dreams. Let's put it on the flash first. Ah, it just clicked into place. I need something long and skinny to pop that up. One of those saw blades might do it. No, that's a bad idea. That's the kind of thing I did when I was working on the rockets. I was very ingenious that way. Okay. That's it. That's the prototype, the way I envisioned it. Okay, so it's finished, and I have no idea whether or not any flash is going to come out of these tubes. Yes. I consider that a success. Now what I need to do is test it. So while you're here, I'll do that. I'll just grab a camera and a tripod and set up some test subject, and we'll see if the light actually works. Okay, guys. So here is what I've done. Here is the contraption. I haven't done anything else to it. The flash is off. I've used my quad hands and I have super clamped the lighting device up here. It wouldn't need to be up here. I just wanted you to be able to see it. I've pointed both of the lights at a tiny little chip. It's actually the controller for the sensor and a camera. And first thing we're going to do is just take a picture with no flash and see what we get. I'm focused on the center of the chip. Okay, I'll show this to you. It's not completely black. I can see a little glimpse of light reflecting off here, but otherwise can't see a thing. Now I'm going to turn the flash on, and I'm going to put it on 1/8 power. 1/8 power. And let's see what we get. And there you have it. A flash lit computer chip. Let me see if I can get a nicer light than that. It's a bit too bright. Well, this is definitely proof of concept. It definitely works, and it puts the light in there like a laser beam. That's even better. So I'm at 1/16 power. Let's knock it down to 1/32 and see what we get. Well, I am absolutely thrilled to bits with that. And the terminal ends of these fiber optics will be easy to add little diffusers to. They'll be easy to add gels to. I'm thinking I might just put a ping pong ball over the end of them. But there's no doubt that it makes plenty of light, and it delivers it laser beam right onto where you point those two devices. I'm absolutely thrilled to bits for a throwaway project that took an hour and about 10 ounces of blood. I didn't show you that part. This is one of those times where the engineers among you are probably shaking your heads in disgust at such a pitiful job. But I'll tell you, I'm really proud of myself. That worked out every bit as good as I was hoping it would. So I think in a subsequent video in the near future, I'm going to do a full detailed macro shoot just using these lights and see what we can actually do with them. Yeah, for a $40 fiber optic system, a 99-cent box, an old flash. By the way, I'm triggering it with a cable because this is a really old flash, and I don't think there's any other way I can trigger it other than with a physical cable. But yeah, I mean, it works just fine. Great, awesome. Well, I had a tremendous amount of fun. I hope you did too. If you've got any of this junk lying around, I highly recommend you give it a try. Then you can go over to Patreon with the money that you didn't give to Adaptalux for the same thing, and you can put some of it towards more movies. Win-win-win situation, unless you're Adaptalux. Thanks for watching, guys. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'll see you again in a few days with something a little more practiced, maybe. See you soon. Take care. Goodbye.